A girl with beauty and brains, Danielle Ursini had the world at her feet. And in the spring of 1993, the 29-year-old decided it was time for a change of scenery. She moved from the Big Apple to sunny Palm Beach, Florida.
I found New York to be much more aggressive and fast-paced, and I really wanted to get away from that. So for me, Florida was a much healthier environment. I found the people to be much friendlier. I knew this is where I wanted to live.
But finding time to meet some of those friendly people wasn't so easy.
I worked so many hours. Dating just was not a part of my life. I wasn't even sure how I would be able to fit it in.
So when her friends suggested she check out the local classified ads for a date, Danielle decided to give it a go. And one soon struck her fancy. A successful businessman looking for a professional woman.
It wasn't someone to just have a good time with. The ad was more maybe looking for a meaningful relationship, and I liked that. So I actually called.
The man who answered was 31-year-old Tom Abrams. And what followed was a 3-hour marathon conversation.
Tom told me that he went to a very well-respected university in South Florida. That's where he pursued his MBA and also played football. He also shared that he was a stockbroker and that he owned his own firm. So I was very intrigued.
An academic, an athlete, and an entrepreneur. Everything about Tom seemed too good to be true. Danielle hung up the phone feeling eager to meet Tom in person. A couple days later, she got her chance.
On our first date, we went to a local movie theater to see an animated kids movie. He wasn't just a businessman in a suit, he could also have a more playful, fun side to him. Of course, I loved that.
As more thoughtful dates followed, the middle-class New York girl found herself in an upper-class fairy tale.
There was a lot of whining and dining. He always bought me beautiful, beautiful jewelry. So this was really a whole new world for me.
Danielle definitely fell hard and fast for Tom. It was a whirlwind. He swept her off her feet.
Behind all the presents and pampering, a genuine love began to flourish.
I was very comfortable with him. It just seemed like this was just a perfect fit, a perfect match.
So after just 4 months of dating, Danielle was ecstatic when Tom popped the question.
We knew we both wanted to be married and we both wanted to have a family. So I was very, very excited. It was all part of the fairy tale.
A few weeks before the wedding, Danielle decided it was time for her to do something special for Tom.
I had wanted to put together a scrapbook. I really was interested in getting pictures from his college football days because memorabilia was really important to me.
But when Danielle asked Tom about the photos, his response took her by surprise.
He told me that he had lived in a trailer and that there was a fire and that everything was destroyed. He had lost all of his pictures, all of his degrees, everything was gone. And I was just devastated to hear that.
Danielle could tell it was a sensitive subject for Tom, so she decided to focus on their future instead of Tom's past. A few months later, the two lovebirds tied the knot in a small ceremony with just their closest friends and family in attendance.
It was a fairy tale wedding right there on the lake. I can remember walking down and the harpist playing. It was beautiful.
It was definitely a storybook relationship. So she was very happy. It doesn't get any more perfect than that.
With 2 words, I do, a simple girl from Queens became a Palm Beach princess and officially joined the privileged world of Tom Abrams.
We were going to begin our life together, and it was going to be a perfect life.
But all that glitter was not gold. And behind Tom's sparkly exterior was a very dark secret. One that would turn Danielle's fairy tale into a nightmare.
He was definitely a master manipulator.
This guy knows what he's doing.
I never could have prepared myself for how terrifying things would become.
In the summer of 1994, newlyweds Danielle and Tom Abrams were living the high life.
We were really enjoying being newlyweds. He was working full-time, and we then opened my counseling center. And about 6 months later, I was pregnant. Tom was just delighted to hear that his first child would be a son, and someday would be the heir to his business.
But every prince needs a castle, and Tom decided an upgrade was in order. So the couple soon found themselves buying a luxurious house in the prestigious Aero Club.
People like to say, oh, I live in the Aero Club, and people knew where the Aero Club was. They had their own landing strip, and you actually land your private plane in your backyard. So it was a status symbol for Tom.
But with the purchase of the new home, Danielle noticed Tom's spending went beyond luxurious. It became downright gluttonous.
I took a small trip to New York, and when I came back, he had leased a Ferrari.
Tom bought a race car. He bought a plane. And I thought, wow, that's a lot. When it came to toys, there were no boundaries. He wanted it, he was going to buy it.
As Tom's spending got more and more out of hand, Danielle became increasingly uneasy.
It was always bigger and bigger and bigger. And on a moral level, that worried me. But Tom would explain that it was necessary because he managed people's money and you had to make a good impression. So I was torn between 2 worlds.
When their son was born in August of 1995, Danielle became more disenchanted by Tom's world when it seemed he had no interest in spending time with her or their new baby.
He wouldn't be home from the office until really late, and that was difficult. But again, he had to run the business. He was managing the finances of some prominent people, and he had to present the image and live it out.
Not that Danielle's husband wasn't at times gracious with money. Tom had, after all, started the Phoenix Foundation to raise funds for charities benefiting needy kids.
Abrams' chief claim to fame was his charity that was doing so much good work down here in South Florida. And he was a gregarious guy, and he knew how to throw a party.
He launched his first charitable grand-scale event. Tom was rubbing elbows with celebrities and athletes and high society. This was definitely an image builder.
While Tom focused on his reputation, Danielle focused on family. And in May of 1997, the couple welcomed a second child into the world. This time, a baby girl.
I hoped that when we had the second baby, maybe he would be home more, maybe he would be more involved.
But as Tom's work hours increased, so did Danielle's suspicions. She couldn't help but wonder if something else, or someone else, was keeping her husband away.
He would tell me he was at business meetings until late.
I have to work late. You know this.
I'd wonder, was he really at a business meeting? Was there something else going on? I would question him, and he would really get angry.
Don't question me about my work. You know.
So then that would just stop that. The message was clear. Don't ask.
But that fall, Danielle was forced to set her suspicions aside when Tom came home with some troubling news that would change everything.
He had all the outward signs of success. It took everyone aback.
No one had any idea of what Tom was capable of doing.
I remember being in a full-blown panic.
In the fall of 1997, Danielle Abrams was stunned when her husband Tom came home with some disturbing news.
I could see that he was a little more rattled or uptight than his normal, confident composure. Tom told me that a particular client invested money with him, but her husband was not comfortable.
What do you want from here?
He wanted her to get the money back.
Which for Tom was easier said than done.
Tom told me it wasn't as quick as the husband expected to get the money back. There were some glitches.
Tom admitted his clients were now starting to question his business practices.
It really caused a stir. People became very angry, very resentful.
Danielle started to hear just little talk, little gossip around town. She thought something was not right. I didn't know where the stigma ends, if it's going to have any backlash on my friend.
We had an alarm system on the home, but I still did not feel real safe. In my mind, we were becoming more and more of a target. I started to become really fearful for our children's safety. I remember being in a full-blown panic.
To keep her family out of the crosshairs, Danielle thought it was best to maintain a low profile.
I told him very definitively, I know you need an image and an impression, but we need to downsize our lives.
We need the house. We need the membership. We need all these things.
And he did not like the idea of it at all.
I don't want to hear another word about it.
Instead, in an effort to repair his reputation, Tom's spending hit a whole new level. His largest and most extravagant purchase being a $100,000 membership to Palm Beach's most exclusive private club, the Mar-a-Lago.
With each new toy that Tom purchased, he was putting his family, his wife and children at risk. I went into protective mode.
One night in April of 1999, Danielle finally put her foot down.
When we had finished dinner with the kids and gave them their baths and put them to bed, I told him that I really felt like something needed to change. But he made it very clear to me, if you're not on my team, helping me reach my goals,
Then I don't need you.
he literally went into the master bedroom, took some trash bags, filled them, and moved out. And I was speechless.
I think in Tom's eyes, she was just supposed to enjoy her children and everything that she had and not question anything he was doing.
I was in a lot of pain, but I had to do it. Divorce was the only option at that point.
In December 2000, after 5 years of marriage, Danielle and Tom's divorce was final. But as the year went on, Danielle got wind of his new life through mutual friends.
The divorce definitely did not slow Tom down. He was schmoozing every night at different Palm Beach events, black tie events.
Despite appearances, Danielle's gut feeling was that Tom's world was closing in on him.
I could see his extravagant and reckless behavior just really ramping up, and he just couldn't keep going in that direction. It was going to blow up in his face.
Danielle had no idea how right she was until November 8th, 2001, when she turned on the news and finally discovered the devastating secret that Tom had been hiding all along.
There were so many lies. It was catastrophic.
He knew what he was doing. He intentionally hurt people.
It was devastating to hear the magnitude of what he had done.
On November 8, 2001, Danielle Abrams turned on the television and was astonished to see her ex-husband Tom on the local news.
There were FBI guys all around Tom's house. They were reporting that he was arrested. I just was stunned.
Danielle sat in disbelief as the news report announced that Tom Abrams had been arrested for masterminding a multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme.
A classic Ponzi scheme is when you take new investors' money to pay off old investors and probably take a slice of it yourself. Abrams represented that he had managed more than $1 billion, when in fact he had far, far less.
After an anonymous tip prompted the FBI to take a closer look at Tom's business, what they found was astonishing.
He created these false statements. He told people that he was investing their money. And in fact, he took in almost $70 million from victims.
Danielle was shocked to learn that Tom had been scamming investors throughout their entire marriage.
Everything that I believed to be true about my husband was not as it appeared. It was hard because he really just devastated so many lives.
The worst part of Tom's scam, however, was whom he was scamming.
The types of investors that Tom Abrams had in his company were some of the most vulnerable people that he knew. Most of them were retirees and elderly people who were looking for a safe place to put their money.
Little did they know their money was gone the moment it exchanged hands.
One of the more heart-wrenching stories involved a man whose wife was dying of cancer and lost in the neighborhood of $750,000 because Tom Abrams cleaned out his accounts.
After the press aired Tom's dirty laundry, Danielle was able to trace his lies all the way back to when they met.
He was lying about his education, the fire that destroyed all of his pictures and memorabilia, because there was no record of Tom attending that university or playing football there. He created this whole personality. In the end, my husband not only committed fraud, but turned out to be a fraud.
On September 30th, 2002, Tom Abrams pled guilty to 15 counts of fraud and money laundering related to his Ponzi scheme and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. And Danielle lost everything she'd gained in her divorce settlement, given that it was investors' money, not Tom's.
I don't miss that lifestyle for a moment. How do you compensate for the loss and the damage and the devastation to so many lives? I think that's a tough one that I've carried.
Today, Danielle and her 2 children, now teenagers, are thriving despite their family's ordeal.
It's been difficult for my children, but our faith and dependence on God is really what has carried all of us through.
Danielle is very resilient. She's done very well for herself. She just went on with her life being a mom.
Through her experience, Danielle has learned that no one is immune to the powers of a con artist.
Being a trained mental health professional, I should have known better. but he knew exactly how to hook me in. So pay attention to the red flags. Better to be safe than sorry in the end.
In the spring of 2010, Amy Anderton was having the time of her life. The perky 28-year-old was newly single and enjoying every minute of it.
I was excited about love and romance, and I thought the world was my oyster, and there was a lot of fish in the sea.
So that March, while Amy was hanging out at an Irish pub in Portland, Oregon, she didn't mind when one of the other patrons approached her.
How you doing?
I was finishing my glass of wine, settling up my tab, and he nonchalantly started a conversation with me.
The charismatic 34-year-old introduced himself as Logan Storm.
He had a thick Irish accent. He started talking about how he was a school teacher and how he was a do-gooder.
What about you?
He asked me about my job and found out that I did community work for a nonprofit. He was very excited to hear about what I did for work.
Well, gotta run. Catch you later.
As the two went their separate ways, Amy didn't think much of the encounter until she arrived home and discovered a surprise from her new friend.
I found a little matchbook in my purse. It said, "The shy Irish fellow from the bar fancies you." He left his phone number on the note. His charismatic charm, it caught my interest. And I thought it was kind of sweet that he was saying he fancied me. So I sent him a text message. I wanted to see what it was about.
Logan responded right away and insisted on setting a date immediately the following night. Before Amy knew it, they were having a romantic dinner in a quaint little restaurant nearby.
It was nice. It was good conversation, getting to know each other. He had a lot to say about growing up in Ireland. He told me that he had a son that lived with him part-time, 3 days a week. He was very flirtatious, and I was flattered.
Logan was keen to see Amy again that weekend, so she invited him to a barbecue, and instantly, her friends were hooked.
He was a nice guy. He was energetic, happy. He seemed to really care about Amy.
Logan seemed absolutely smitten with Amy. He was very starry-eyed over her. So I was encouraging Amy to see what becomes of this relationship.
Amy took her friend's advice and soon learned some interesting things about her new beau.
We were at a gathering with some friends, and I heard him talking about a former student who became a stripper.
I'm sexy a stripper. Really?
And he was mentoring her. I didn't give it much thought because he was always trying to help other people be positive and be their support.
But it wasn't until Logan began opening up about his own difficult past that Amy truly understood why staying positive was such a focus in his life.
He said that his dad spent time in a psychiatric hospital. So his mom thought that it was safer for him to grow up with his grandparents in Belfast, Ireland.
I was dating this girl for a little while, and she blew herself up making a film.
He never said specifically that he was involved with the IRA, but he alluded to that, and that's when they deported him.
To the United States.
Logan told Amy he eventually found his way back to Portland, where he'd managed to mend his relationship with his parents.
I admired him. I thought that it was great that he could grow up under such circumstances and become someone great.
But Amy would soon learn that this do-gooder was actually as bad as they come, as his vortex of lies pulled her into a world she never imagined.
I was just blown away at the levels of deception.
There was something mentally broken with him.
I was trying to make sense of what was going on. I felt gullible. I felt betrayed.
In the spring of 2010, Amy Anderton was starting to fall hard for her new Irish love interest, Logan Storm.
As a couple, we did a lot of different things together, getting to know each other, but I wanted to date for a little while and not rush into a relationship.
Amy was happy taking things slowly, especially when it came to meeting Logan's 12-year-old son. But Logan had other ideas, and he made them clear one Sunday morning in May.
Logan was going to pick up his son and specifically told me, "We're not coming back here directly, so take your time getting up and getting ready and let yourself out." So I was wandering around the house and making some coffee.
Before Amy knew it, she saw Logan and his son walking up the sidewalk.
I kind of freaked out and ran into his bedroom and shut the door. They came in and Logan said, "Son, Amy's still here. Would you like to meet her?" My heart sunk into my stomach and I just gulped. So I said, "Hi. Nice to meet you."
This is Amy.
I was kind of upset with him. It's like he wasn't respecting how I felt or my boundaries.
When Amy confronted him about it later that day, it was Logan who drew a line in the sand.
That made me feel really uncomfortable.
Oh, so it's all about you? Well, what about us?
He told me that he was not willing to invest in a relationship that wasn't going anywhere.
How are you supposed to have a relationship together without trust?
He wanted me to just let go and to just trust him.
So Amy decided to do just that, let go and take a chance.
That made an impression on me, and I thought that the relationship had potential to last forever.
But by the middle of May, Amy started to notice something was troubling her new boyfriend.
I could tell Logan was struggling financially. He talked about how it was hard for him to pay his bills. He said that he couldn't afford his house, and the only place that he could afford would be a little one-bedroom apartment.
And by the beginning of June, Amy couldn't take it any longer.
He made me feel like I had something that I could offer him to make his situation better. If I asked one of my roommates to move out, then he and his son could move into my house. So I offered it, and I was feeling pretty good about it.
It seemed an act of convenience for him to move in with her, as opposed to a conscious choice they made as a couple. But I was still emphasizing to Amy that I thought he was a catch.
Then, just a few weeks after Logan started to move in, their relationship was tested yet again.
It was about 11:30 p.m., and his phone rang. He said, "Oh, it's my former student who's a stripper, and she wants a ride home from the strip club." My reaction to that was, well, that's not okay, and if you want to have a relationship with me, you can't have other relationships like that going on.
You should not be talking with this girl. No, come back here. No.
He turned it around on me and said that I was making a big deal and stormed out of the house. I felt like he was hiding things from me.
Soon, Amy would uncover exactly what Logan was hiding, and the horrific truth would haunt her forever.
Amy was incredibly disturbed.
I was scared of what I had found. It was shocking to me.
You need to set boundaries.
No, this is ridiculous.
What are you trying to do?
In June 2010, after fighting with her boyfriend Logan Storm about his mentorship of a former student-turned-stripper, Amy decided to confide in a friend.
She told me that she sensed something was wrong, and she told me I needed to look into it. It was not normal.
Come back here.
Amy initially resisted and went over to Logan's to talk with him instead.
Amy seemed freaked out that he didn't know what could be wrong with that. That was completely inappropriate.
We had a very serious discussion about boundaries, and I asked him to call his former student and set up a time to go out to lunch or coffee with her and set some good boundaries. So he took my advice, which made me feel good.
While Amy felt she was making progress with Logan, she couldn't ignore her gut.
There was still something deep down inside of me that was questioning if he was hiding things. I didn't really trust him.
So Amy decided to play detective. She had no idea this was merely the calm before the storm. On the morning of July 23rd, Amy waited for Logan to leave for work before looking through his things.
I was feeling like Logan was hiding something, and I wanted to see what he was hiding. He had a jewelry box on the dresser, and I looked in it and saw a thumb drive. It looked like it was tucked under things to be hidden. I wanted to see what was on it, so I plugged it into the computer. I wasn't able to process what I was seeing.
Oh my God.
It was shocking to me. I found hundreds of pictures of child pornography on it. Very explicit, disturbing images of little children that were being raped and abused. I was scared of what I had found, and I didn't know how to respond to it.
Heart racing, Amy returned the thumb drive to its hiding spot.
Logan came home from work.
How you doing?
All right.
He took one look at me and said,
You look like you've seen a ghost.
and my response to him was, no, I'm just stressed out. I was nervous about bringing it up. I thought that maybe he would hurt me, to keep me quiet, to not tell anyone.
The next morning, she told Logan she'd made 2 decisions.
I told Logan I needed a break, and I needed to go visit my family in Utah. And I told Logan that I needed him to move out before I got back. He screamed loud, just let out a bellowing scream, just clenched his fists and screamed at the top of his lungs. I became more scared of him.
Amy quickly left and arrived a few hours later at her family's home in Utah. Once safe and secure, she made the most important decision of her life.
I decided to turn him in. I called 911. They had me describe everything and what I saw.
There were children, and they were really graphic.
The police got a search warrant and went to the home shortly after that. They told Logan that they needed to search the premises. They feared they were going to find images of child pornography on his computer. Logan remained completely calm. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't surprised. The detectives confiscated the computer and the thumb drive, but they did not arrest him at that point. They wanted to make sure their evidence remained intact. They didn't want to lose any of it. They didn't want to jeopardize it.
As soon as authorities examined the images on the thumb drive, they immediately put out a warrant for Logan's arrest.
He fled very suddenly. That was certainly not the behavior of someone who had nothing to hide.
While investigators searched frantically for the fugitive, Amy cautiously returned home to Portland, only to discover that her nightmare had just begun.
We did not see this coming.
I felt afraid for my life. I didn't know what he was capable of.
In the summer of 2010, Amy Anderton was terrified after her ex-boyfriend Logan Storm went on the run.
I was pretty scared for my life. I knew that he knew it was me who found the child pornography and called the police. I didn't know where he went, but when I came home, all of my things had been gone through in my room, and my spare key was not in its place. I thought Logan had been involved with the IRA in Ireland. So I called the cops because I thought that he had planted a bomb in my car.
While police found no evidence of a bomb, they did have an explosive piece of news for Amy. There was no chance that Logan was ever affiliated with the IRA. In fact, he never lived in Ireland.
The cops started to tell me that Logan grew up in Portland, Oregon, and didn't have an Irish accent. It was all a lie. I was just in shock. It made me realize I did not know who he was, and therefore I didn't know what he was capable of. I got a weapon and slept with it by my bed. I changed the locks because every sound of anything woke me up thinking it was him coming after me and getting revenge for ruining his life.
Amy was terrified. No one knew where he was, and the stress was really getting to her.
As Amy battled a flood of emotions, she realized everything Logan had told her was a lie.
I don't believe that his father spent time in a psychiatric hospital. I think that Logan made all of those things up to make himself look like a victim. He was manipulating me.
Equally disturbing was how Amy felt Logan had clearly turned his own son into a chess piece.
I think he was using his son to move into my house. I think it looked good for him to live with me, to have a girlfriend who was doing this good work in the community, and he was using me just to get what he wanted. I felt gullible. I felt betrayed.
And the girl Logan said he was mentoring?
I don't know if the former student slash stripper was just another one of Logan's lies. He was a predatory, deceptive liar.
I don't think anyone's ever going to know the truth about him. There's studies that show that people who are abusive have been abused before. I'm thinking that maybe he was a victim because he put himself in the victim role so much.
Meanwhile, after 7 months, Logan's attorneys located him hiding out in Europe. They convinced him to return to Portland, where he was officially booked for possession of child pornography.
I was very relieved when Logan was arrested, but it was so surreal.
On January 23, 2013, Logan Storm went to trial and pled not guilty.
I very much believe in our country and our laws. I respect the system and I respect the procedures.
Amy was forced to come face to face with the man she turned in.
The first time I saw him, I thought that I was going to be sick. I saw him do a double take, and I saw fear in his eyes. It made me feel powerful. I was protecting young children.
6 days later, the middle school teacher was convicted on 1 count of possessing child pornography. On September 10, 2013, Logan Storm was sentenced to 8 years for his crimes.
I think he deserved harsher. Honestly, this guy is somebody that should not be on the streets, ever.
It wasn't the maximum, but it was enough to show that it was a severe crime. And I didn't have to look over my shoulder, and I didn't have to worry where he was.
Today, Amy is still dealing with the reality of what she went through.
I feel like my life will forever be changed from this because I'm scared to get close to people. I'm scared that people could be hiding things.
Even though she's not ready to fully trust others again, Amy refuses to let what Logan did affect her future.
Amy is such a strong, honest person, and she's maintained an attitude of strength and perseverance. I'm really proud of her for that.
I'm very hopeful that other people will follow my lead, but if I didn't have such great friends, I don't think I would have made it through it.
The night the lights went out on County Road 12, nobody in the tiny town of Redwater understood that they were watching the opening line of a tragedy that would take 25 years to circle back and strike like lightning. 1 minute the road was nothing but a ribbon of hot Texas asphalt under a June moon, and the next, a pickup truck sat abandoned on the shoulder, driver's door open, engine still ticking with leftover heat. A radio hummed through static as if trying to whisper the last thing it heard. And somewhere in the dark, a 19-year-old girl had vanished without a sound. They called it a disappearance at first, then a mystery, and by the end of that summer, a cold case, one of the oldest, strangest, and most whispered about in the town's memory. But in 1999, on that suffocating night, the sense of dread hadn't arrived yet. Only the silence, only the dust, only the question, where did she go? Her name was Hannah Lynn Vaughn, a freshman at Texarkana College, a part-time waitress at a diner where the jukebox still played George Strait and the coffee tasted like the 1970s. She was the kind of girl whose smile got mentioned in church bulletins and whose absence hit the town like a cracked window letting in a sudden storm. People didn't vanish in Redwater. They got married, raised cattle, complained about the heat, and died old. They didn't step out of their truck and dissolve into thin air. But her truck didn't lie. The driver's seat was pushed back too far, like someone taller had moved it. The keys were still in the ignition. Her phone, a cheap plastic flip phone, sat open on the passenger seat, screen lit, frozen on an unsent text. I saw some tea. It ended there. No recipient, no clue, just a cut-off message that would haunt detectives for decades. When Deputy Marshal Curtis Harlan arrived on scene, he immediately felt the kind of tension that law enforcement learns to sense before they can explain it. There were no tire tracks hinting at a struggle, no blood, no discarded belongings scattered in the ditch. It was clean, too clean, a disappearance without friction, like someone had reached into the night and plucked her away with surgical precision. Locals swarmed the road by sunrise, eyes wide, whispers sharp. Cold case, someone muttered under their breath, as though the words alone could curse the investigation before it had begun. Mothers held their daughters closer. Fathers checked their door locks twice. In a town where everybody knew everybody, no one wanted to admit the truth. If Hannah had met someone out there, then it had to be someone familiar, someone trusted, someone close. The search started immediately. Dogs, volunteers, deputies, even farmers on ATVs combing through mesquite and tall grass. Nothing. No footprints, no fabric scraps, no sign of wildlife disturbance. It was as if the land itself had swallowed her whole. Night after night, Deputy Harlan drove the same stretch of road, headlights cutting through brush and shadow, waiting for something to feel wrong again, waiting for the case to breathe. It never did. Theories multiplied like weeds. A runaway, kidnapping, a staged disappearance, a jealous ex-boyfriend, a traveling serial predator drifting across state lines. A cult rumor that had sprouted after a strange bonfire was spotted in the woods weeks earlier. Every possibility seemed too wild or too plain, too elaborate or too simple. The case twisted into a shape that no one could wrap their hands around. And then came the detail that froze the entire investigation. A witness, shaky and terrified, reported seeing a man standing beside Hannah's truck minutes after the engine had been heard revving. He wasn't walking. He wasn't helping. He was staring, motionless, as if waiting for someone to notice him. The witness described only one thing they were sure of. He was wearing a sheriff's department jacket. Those words hit the investigation like a bomb. Suddenly deputies questioned deputies. Suddenly everyone became a suspect. Suddenly the badge felt heavier, more dangerous, and the lines between protector and predator blurred. And in a small town where loyalty was thicker than blood, the idea that one of their own might be involved didn't just spark fear. It sparked denial so deep it paralyzed the case for years. By fall, the evidence had dried. Witnesses contradicted themselves. Rumors turned to noise. Leads evaporated. Files grew dusty. Hannah's mother aged a decade in a single year, while her father refused to move the porch light from their front door, claiming she would find her way back if she could see home from the highway. But in every sheriff's office, in every police locker room, in every backroom conversation whispered between officers who didn't want their words recorded, one phrase lingered. The girl on County Road 12. It became ghost shorthand. A warning. A symbol of the one that got away. The jacket rumor faded, replaced by new scandals, new crimes, new worries. But Deputy Harlan didn't forget. Not when he retired. Not when he moved counties. Not when the world changed around him. He kept a copy of the case file in his desk drawer, a reminder of the night he failed to bring a girl home. 25 years later, long after the investigation had frozen solid, long after the detectives had changed, long after the people of Redwater stopped expecting answers, the phone rang at the county sheriff's office. A call that would melt the ice around this case in a matter of minutes. A man had walked into a confession booth, and he said he knew what happened to Hannah. He said he had been there. He said he had seen everything. He said he had kept a secret for 25 years, and it was eating him alive. But his final words were what shook the foundation of the entire department. What made every deputy stop what they were doing and stare at each other with a terror they hadn't felt since 1999. I'm ready to confess now, but I wasn't the only one wearing a sheriff's jacket that night. One sentence. One tremor. One crack in the surface of the cold case that had buried a town in suspicion for decades. Because if he wasn't alone, then someone else. Someone still alive, someone still out there, had been hiding behind the same badge, walking into the same buildings, shaking the same hands. And suddenly everything Redwater thought it knew about loyalty, justice, protection shattered. The confession didn't solve the case. It detonated it. And as detectives swarmed to reopen the archives, to dig through old evidence with new technology, to question those who thought their past had been safely buried, one thing became painfully clear. Whatever happened to Hannah Vaughn did not end on County Road 12. It began there. And the truth waiting on the other side of this confession wasn't just going to answer a question. It was going to rewrite the entire story. The man who delivered the confession walked into the sheriff's office just after sunrise, the Texas heat already trembling off the pavement like a warning. He didn't speak to the receptionist, didn't look around, didn't hesitate. He stepped through the front doors with the stiffness of someone who had rehearsed every move for years. His name was Eli Mercer, a quiet mechanic from 3 towns over, a man whose entire adult life had passed without drawing a single headline, until now. When he said, "I need to confess to a crime from 1999, the deputy at the front desk stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or panic. But Eli wasn't smiling. His eyes looked like something had been scraped out of them long ago, leaving only the outline of a man who had carried too much for too long. He sat with his hands folded tightly, knuckles white, as if holding himself together required physical force. And when Detective Sarah Keene entered the room, something shifted in him, relief and terror collapsing into each other like 2 waves meeting. Sarah had been 7 years old when Hannah disappeared. She grew up hearing the story whispered at backyard barbecues, the cold case tone hanging in the air like cigarette smoke. She became a detective because she wanted to understand what silence did to a community, what unanswered questions did to a family. And now, after 25 years, the silence had finally cracked. Eli didn't start at the beginning. He started at the moment that haunted him most. "I wasn't wearing the jacket," he said, voice low, shaky. "I saw someone else wearing it. 2 someone else's." Sarah froze. 2 deputies? He swallowed. They weren't deputies. Every hair on her arms rose. Across the table, he began speaking with a rhythm that felt like a dam breaking. He told her that in 1999, he had been driving through Redwater late that night. He had pulled over near Hannah's truck when he saw movement. Two men standing beside the open driver's door, both in sheriff's jackets, both watching something in the dark brush. One of them he recognized instantly, a man whose name he wouldn't say yet, a man who, according to Eli, should never have been wearing that jacket. "They didn't see me," he whispered, "or maybe they didn't care. I don't know anymore." As he spoke, Sarah could feel her pulse thudding, the story stretching out like a shadow growing longer and darker. Eli said he watched the men drag something or someone into the trees. He wasn't sure. He couldn't see clearly. He only remembered the sound, a muffled cry, a sudden hush, and then silence so absolute it felt staged. He fled before they noticed him, and he never spoke again about what he'd seen. Not to his family, not to his pastor, not even to himself, if his hollowed-out stare was any measure. But the image never left him. Not the jackets, not the men, not the sound. When Sarah asked why he hadn't come forward earlier, he laughed. A dry, brittle sound. "You don't accuse men like that in a town like this," he said. "Not back then. Not ever." The weight of that sentence settled on her like a storm cloud. She knew exactly what he meant. Redwater in 1999 was a town where hierarchy wasn't just respected. It was feared, where certain names opened doors and others kept them locked. Power wasn't always earned. Sometimes it was inherited like land, or reputation, or silence. But something still didn't add up. "If you were just a witness," she said carefully, "what exactly are you confessing to?" For the first time, Eli looked up, really looked at her. And there, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the guilt, was something else, dread. "I wasn't innocent," he said. "I followed them." The room went still. "Not that night," he continued, voice cracking. "The next morning, I went back to the woods. I wanted to make sure what I saw was real. I wanted proof. But all I found was a piece of fabric. From her shirt, I think. And I took it." Sarah blinked. He had taken evidence. He had hidden it for 25 years. A scrap of fabric that could hold DNA, fibers, soil traces, all the things the 1999 investigation never had. "Do you still have it?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "It's in my truck." Two deputies stepped out to retrieve it while Sarah stayed with Eli, watching his hands tremble. He looked like a man sitting beside his own grave, waiting to see if the dirt would fall on him or someone else. Minutes later, the deputies returned with a small plastic bag. Inside, folded carefully as if it had been preserved out of reverence, was a strip of torn blue cotton, the exact shade Hannah was wearing the night she vanished. The bag went straight to evidence, straight to the lab, straight into motion, a chain of events that no one in the building was prepared for. While they waited for the results, Sarah asked the question everyone already feared. Who were the men wearing the jackets? Eli hesitated. His jaw clenched. His breath shortened. "You won't believe me," he whispered. "Try me." He closed his eyes. "One of them used to work in your department." A surge of cold rolled through her. The room suddenly felt too small, too bright, too exposed. "Who?" she said, voice tightening. Eli answered so quietly she almost missed it. "Deputy Marshal Curtis Harlan." The name dropped like a lead weight. The retired deputy. The man who had obsessed over the case. The man who claimed he felt a tension in the air that night. The man who had kept a copy of the case file in his desk for 25 years. Sarah felt the floor shift under her. Harlan had been treated as a hero, the one who never stopped caring. The one who mourned the case more than anyone. The one who visited Hannah's parents every anniversary. But now a witness placed him at the scene, wearing a sheriff's jacket, standing by her truck, dragging something into the woods. She didn't want to believe it. The town wouldn't believe it. Her entire department would splinter in half if she even said the name out loud. But there was something even worse in Eli's story. Something unsaid, looming like a storm on the horizon. "You said there were two men," she said softly. "Harlan and who else?" Eli's lips parted. but no words came out. Instead, he pressed his palms to his eyes, shaking, as if forcing himself to look at a memory that wanted to stay buried. Before he could speak, the door opened. A lab tech stood there, breathless, holding a sheet of paper that might as well have been a detonator. "Detective Keene," he said, "you need to see this." Her heart hammered as she took the results. The DNA extracted from the fabric matched Hannah's profile, confirmation that the piece had come from the scene. But beneath that, circled in red ink, was something else. A second DNA profile. A male profile. A direct hit in the national database. Her eyes widened. Her breath hitched. The room seemed to tilt. The DNA belonged not to a stranger. Not to an old suspect. Not to any civilian. It belonged to a former sheriff's deputy. A deputy who had resigned in 2000. A deputy who had moved states. A deputy who had never once been questioned. And his name appeared right there, printed in bold letters. Mark Hollis. Not Harlan. Not the deputy everyone suspected. Someone else, someone deeper in the shadows. Someone who had vanished almost as cleanly as Hannah herself. Sarah looked up from the page as Eli finally found his voice. "That's the second man," he whispered. "Hollis. He was there that night. 2 deputies. 2 jackets. 2 shadows by the truck." And suddenly the story Redwater had clung to for 25 years fractured into something unrecognizable. Because if Hollis had left DNA on the fabric, and Harlan had been seen at the scene, then the truth wasn't going to be a single confession. It was going to be a collision, and the next step would tear the past open like a wound that had never healed. The revelation of Mark Hollis's DNA didn't just rattle the sheriff's office. It cracked the floor beneath it. The name carried a quiet, radioactive weight that spread through the building like a slow-moving shockwave. Deputies exchanged glances they didn't dare voice. A few stepped away from their desks as if distance could save them from implication. And in the center of it all, Detective Sarah Keene stood gripping the lab paper like it was burning through her hands. A second deputy. A missing deputy. A man who had worn the badge, vanished from town, and left behind a ghost everyone forgot to fear. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The silence spoke for her, thick and suffocating. Eli Mercer watched her closely, waiting for her to react, to explode, to accuse him of lying. But she didn't. Instead, she sank slowly into her chair. Not defeated, but focused, bracing herself for the storm she knew was coming. "What do you want to do?" one of the deputies asked, voice barely above a whisper. Sarah didn't look up. "Find him." Hollis had left Redwater months after Hannah disappeared, supposedly for a job in Oklahoma. He hadn't stayed long. Then he went to Arkansas. Then New Mexico. Then nowhere. Records thinned out like a trail that had been intentionally swept clean. The last known address listed in any database was from 2008. A small rental home outside Alamogordo, abandoned by the time a welfare check was made. He hadn't filed taxes in years. No driver's license renewals. No pay stubs. No digital footprint. It was like he'd folded himself into the cracks of America and disappeared. But Sarah knew something men like him could never erase. Fear. Someone somewhere had seen him. Someone had heard his name spoken in a tone that meant trouble. Someone carried a memory they didn't realize was evidence. Before she could take the next step, before she could even steady her breathing, the door swung open and Sheriff Raymond Cole stepped inside. His expression was carved from stone. Unreadable, sharp, a face that had seen too many nights like this and not nearly enough answers. "I heard," he said flatly. "Is it confirmed?" Sarah handed him the paper. He scanned it without blinking. When he finished, his jaw clenched so hard a muscle jumped in his cheek. "This stays internal," he said. "No leaks. Not one whisper. Not until we understand what we're dealing with." But that was the problem. They didn't just have a suspect. They had a former deputy whose presence in 1999 threatened the integrity of the entire original investigation. If word spread that a sheriff's deputy might have been involved, the town would erupt. Trust would collapse. Every case from that era would be called into question. And if Harlan was involved too? Sarah felt her stomach tighten. She didn't want to think it, didn't want to breathe it. Harlan had been her mentor when she first joined the force, a gruff but caring relic of old-school policing. He had taught her how to read silence, how to recognize lies in the space between sentences. The thought that he might have been lying for 25 years didn't just break her trust. It shattered the foundation of who she thought he was. "Bring him in," the sheriff said. "Harlan?" she asked. "Both of them," he replied. "Harlan and Mercer. We're reopening the timeline from scratch." But as they prepared the interrogation rooms, as deputies fanned out to collect every archive box tied to the case, as old reports and handwritten field notes resurfaced from dust and neglect, something happened that no one expected.
Eli Mercer collapsed.
One moment he was sitting quietly in the hallway, hands folded the way they had been when he walked in. The next, he was crumpled on the floor, unconscious, pale, sweat beading on his forehead. Medics rushed in. Deputies stepped back. Sarah knelt beside him, calling his name, but his eyes rolled back, lips blue, breath shallow. He looked poisoned. Just as panic surged, he gasped sharply. A ragged, tearing sound, and his eyes flew open. He stared at the ceiling like he was seeing something that wasn't there. "They know," he croaked. Sarah leaned closer. "Who knows?" He grabbed her wrist, grip surprisingly strong. "Harlan, Hollis, both. They know I talked." "How?" she demanded. But he couldn't answer. He sank back into unconsciousness as medics lifted him onto a stretcher. Sarah stood frozen as they rushed him out the door. A tremor of unease rippled down her spine. Nobody had contacted Harlan yet. Their intel hadn't left the building. There were no leaks, no calls placed, no messages sent. So how did Eli believe they already knew? The sheriff stepped beside her. "Find out if this was a medical issue or something else." "Something else like what?" she asked. Cole didn't respond. He didn't have to. 2 hours later, they located Harlan. Or rather, they tried to. A deputy drove out to his ranch, a small, aging property on the far edge of Redwater, where the grass grew tall and the fence posts leaned like old men too tired to stand straight. They expected to find him fixing a tractor, tending to his quiet life, unaware of the firestorm about to ignite. Instead, they found his truck missing, his front door unlocked, his porch light still on from the night before, and in his kitchen, one detail that chilled Sarah when she received the report. A sheriff's department jacket lying neatly draped over a chair. Clean, pressed, untouched, like a uniform waiting for a man who wasn't coming back. "Run his phone," Sarah ordered. "It's off. Run his cards. No use in 3 days. Check the cameras on County Road 12. The deputy hesitated. "Detective, we already did." She looked up sharply. "And?" A truck matching Harlan's passed the exact disappearance site at 3:17 a.m. this morning. Sarah's breath caught. The case wasn't just reopening. It was circling back on itself like a predator returning to a kill site. "What was he doing there?" she whispered. The deputy swallowed. "We don't know. He didn't stop. But the footage shows his headlights slowing as he passed." "Was he alone?" "We can't see. The window tint is too dark." The room seemed to constrict around her. Harlan wasn't just missing. He was retracing Hannah's steps, revisiting the scene, moving in patterns he thought no one was watching. "Get a bolo out," the sheriff said. "Statewide, interstate if necessary." But even as the order left his mouth, Sarah felt something cold anchor inside her chest. They weren't tracking a runaway. They were tracking a man who had waited 25 years for this exact moment. A man who had lived with the case carved into his bones and who might now be slipping beneath the surface for reasons she didn't dare articulate. She went to the evidence room compelled by instinct. She needed to see the original files, the old notes, the crime scene photos. She needed to breathe the dust of 1999. Inside the archive box, buried beneath the outdated reports, she found something she had never noticed before. A page that didn't match the others. Different paper, different ink, different handwriting. A single line, written in block letters. She saw the badge before she saw who was wearing it. Her heart stopped. It wasn't dated. It wasn't signed. It wasn't referenced or logged. It should not have existed. And suddenly everything she believed about the night Hannah vanished twisted into a darker, sharper shape. Hannah didn't trust the man who approached her. She only trusted the badge. The badge that should have protected her. The badge that lured her out of her truck. The badge she texted about in her final unsent message. I saw some tea. Not something. Someone. Someone wearing authority. Someone wearing trust. Someone wearing the symbol of the department itself. Sarah felt the room close in. This wasn't a case about a deputy who snapped. This wasn't a lone predator hiding behind a uniform. This was a system, a circle, a secret, and somewhere inside it was the truth. Twisted, buried, hungry to surface. Her phone buzzed suddenly. A message from the hospital. Eli Mercer is awake. He's asking for you. Sarah grabbed her keys. Because whatever he remembered next wasn't just going to advance the investigation. It was going to tear through it like a match to dry grass. The hallway outside Eli Mercer's hospital room smelled like disinfectant and dread. Sharp, sterile, cold. The kind of cold that crept beneath the skin and whispered that whatever waited behind the door would not bring comfort. Detective Sarah Keene paused with her hand hovering over the handle, steadying the pulse pounding at the base of her throat. She had interrogated killers. She had knocked on doors to deliver news that shattered families. She had walked into crime scenes where silence felt heavier than bodies. But this moment, this quiet, humming moment, felt different. Like she was about to cross a line she wouldn't be able to uncross. When she stepped inside, Eli was sitting upright, pale, hooked to wires and tubes, eyes half open as though drifting between two worlds. But when he saw her, something sharp flickered to life. Awareness, urgency. A fear so raw it felt like it had teeth. You came, he rasped. I need the rest of your story, she said. All of it. He nodded slowly, throat working, breath thin. Close the blinds. She did. And lock the door. She hesitated. Hospitals weren't meant for secrecy. But one look at his trembling hands told her this wasn't paranoia. It was survival. She turned the lock. Eli swallowed hard. They weren't supposed to come back for me. Not after this long. They didn't, she said gently. You collapsed. It might have been stress, shock. He cut her off with a harsh laugh that broke halfway through. Detective, that wasn't shock. That wasn't panic. That was a warning. Her pulse kicked. Explain. Eli leaned forward until the monitor wires strained. Back in '99, when I saw those men drag something into the woods, I panicked. I got in my truck. I drove off, but I couldn't stop thinking. What if she was alive? What if she needed help? I was 19, stupid, scared, but I went back the next morning. He paused, shaking, breath stuttering. What did you find? Sarah asked. He rubbed his hands together as though trying to warm fingers that had gone numb 25 years ago. Not them, not her, just the fabric. But there was something else. Something I didn't want to remember until now. Sarah braced herself. There were tire tracks deep in the mud. Fresh. Same tread pattern as the sheriff's department cruisers. But the angle, the way they turned, he swallowed. It wasn't just someone leaving the scene. It was someone circling back. Someone watching to see if anyone returned. Sarah felt the chill climb up her spine. I didn't tell anyone, he said. I thought if I stayed quiet, it'd go away. Then, 2 weeks later, I woke up to find a note in my mailbox.
No envelope. No signature.
Just one sentence. He looked up, and his voice thinned to a whisper. Keep the road out of your mouth. Sarah's heart clenched. Did you keep the note?
No.
I burned it. His voice cracked. I didn't want my family involved. And you think the collapse was the same warning, he finished. Another message. Another reminder. Sarah didn't want to believe it, but she had learned long ago that disbelief was a luxury detectives couldn't afford. Still, the timeline didn't make sense. No one outside the department knew your name, she said. No one knew you were coming in. No one. His voice rose suddenly, desperate, frantic. You don't understand. They always knew. They watched everything. That's how it worked back then. Cameras, ears, favors owed. Someone always knew where you were or what you were about to do. You're saying the department was involved? No, he said, shaking his head violently. Not the department. People inside the department. People who used the badge like a weapon. Every muscle in her body tightened. He continued, voice trembling. That night, one of the men, the taller one, he wasn't wearing the jacket right. Sleeves too long. Shoulders too wide. Like he'd grabbed someone else's uniform. Harlan's? She asked. Eli hesitated. Maybe. I don't know. But I know this. Hollis was the one dragging something. Harlan was watching the road. Sarah's breath caught. Watching the road. Watching for headlights. Watching for witnesses. Why were they there? She asked. What reason could they possibly? Eli shook his head again. I don't know. But they weren't surprised when they saw the truck. They weren't reacting. They were waiting. Waiting. The words settled heavily between them. Waiting implied planning. Planning implied motive. Motive meant this wasn't random at all. Before she could press him, footsteps echoed faintly in the hallway. Soft, measured, slow.
Eli stiffened instantly.
They're here, he whispered. No one followed me, she assured him. He shook violently. Not for you. For me. Sarah stepped toward the door. Instinct duty, but Eli's hand shot out. Don't open it.
Any. I.
Detective, he said, gripping her sleeve. Before anything happens, you need to know what I saw the second morning. Not just the tracks. Not just the fabric. Something else. Something I didn't understand until I heard Hollis's name again. Her breath tightened. Tell me. He inhaled deeply, eyes glassy with terror. When I was bending down picking up the fabric, I heard something snap behind me. A branch. Footsteps. I turned around, but I didn't see them. I only saw the jacket, hanging from a tree limb, like a scarecrow. Her pulse hammered. The sleeve was torn, he whispered. Exactly where the lab found Hollis's DNA today. A torn sleeve, a mounted jacket, a staged warning. So Hollis left it there? She asked.
No, Eli whispered.
Hollis didn't leave it. He lost it. Someone ripped it off. Who? His voice dropped to a ragged whisper. Hannah. The air in the room thinned. That's why the fabric was there, he said. That's why the sleeve was torn. She fought them. She wasn't taken quietly. She tried. His voice broke. She tried to run. Sarah felt a wave of grief so sharp it felt like physical pain. And the jacket in Harlan's kitchen? She asked. The one found this morning? Eli's eyes widened. The one folded on the chair? Yes. His breathing hitched. That wasn't his jacket, he said. Harlan never folded anything in his life. Someone put it there. A beat of silence. To send a message, Eli whispered. The footsteps outside the room grew louder, closer, purposeful. Sarah reached instinctively for her weapon. A shadow passed under the door. Eli's voice was barely breath now. Detective, you asked earlier why I thought they knew I talked. His eyes locked with hers, hollow yet piercing. It's because the note in my mailbox wasn't the only warning I ever got. What else was there? She whispered. He lifted a trembling finger and pointed to the blinds she had closed minutes before. Someone cut the cord last night, he said. Before I came in. Her stomach dropped. They wanted me to know, he said, voice breaking. They wanted me to feel it. They wanted me to remember that even after all these years they can still reach me. A soft tap sounded on the hospital door. Not a knock. Tap. Slow. Controlled.
Familiar.
Sarah raised her weapon, pulse surging. Eli squeezed her arm. Don't open it. Don't. The door handle twitched. Just once. Then stilled. The footsteps retreated down the hall. fading like a threat swallowed back into the walls. Sarah exhaled shakily. Eli's monitor beeped rapidly, his pulse spiking. "They're warning me," he gasped. "Warning you. This isn't just about Hollis and Harlan. There's one more. The one who planned it. The one who—" His chest heaved. He clutched his ribs, face contorting.
Eli.
"Eli, stay with me." He gasped out a single name. A name she wasn't ready to hear. A name that detonated inside her mind like a flashbang. A name tied not only to the sheriff's department, but to her own childhood, her own memories, her own past. And before she could ask him to repeat it, before she could make sense of the horror unraveling between them, the monitors screamed, nurses rushed in, and Eli Mercer's body went limp as though the truth had finally taken everything left inside him. Sarah stepped back, heart pounding, the name echoing inside her skull. A dark thread connecting her to a night she never knew she was part of. And suddenly she understood. This wasn't just a cold case. It wasn't even a reopened one. This was a warning. And the person pulling the strings wasn't hiding in the past. They were standing firmly in the present. The name Eli gasped before collapsing didn't leave Sarah's mind when she stepped out of the hospital room. It consumed it. The syllables rang through her skull like a siren. A name she had grown up hearing. A name spoken in potluck dinners and school gymnasiums. A name tied to childhood photographs, holiday barbecues, and the faint smell of cedar from Sunday church benches. It wasn't the name of a stranger. It wasn't the name of an outsider. It was a name woven into her own life. Her breath slipped out in a shaky exhale as she pressed her back against the hallway wall. She closed her eyes as if that could stop the world from shifting beneath her feet. But the moment she let the name fully settle inside her, a sharp, undeniable truth rose with it. The person orchestrating the silence, the power, the fear behind Hannah's disappearance wasn't someone distant. It was someone she once trusted. Voices cut through the fog. Nurses calling for stabilizers. Medics working feverishly behind the closed door. The hospital hallway buzzed like a hive shaken awake. Sarah forced herself to stand upright, to breathe, to think. But thinking felt like trying to grip smoke. She stepped toward the elevator, needing air, distance, clarity. But as the doors parted, Sheriff Cole stepped out. His expression was tight, hard, and older than it had been an hour ago. "How is he?" the sheriff asked. Sarah shook her head. "Unstable. He fainted again after telling me something important." "What did he tell you?" She hesitated. Cole noticed. His eyes sharpened. "Detective, I'm not ready to say it yet," she replied, voice low. "Not until I verify it." Cole exhaled slowly. "Fair enough. But we have a bigger problem." He handed her a piece of paper, a time-stamped printout, from a traffic camera. She scanned it, breath-catching. A truck. A familiar truck. The same make. The same dents along the fender. The same shape she had memorized in case files and childhood memories. It belonged to the person whose name was digging itself into her chest like a splinter. "Was this taken today?" she asked quietly. Cole nodded. 10 minutes after you arrived at the hospital." "Heading where?" "Toward County Road 12. Of course. County Road 12, the place where everything began. The place where the badge first became a trap. The place where a 19-year-old girl fought for her life and managed to tear a sleeve off a man who had no intention of letting her go." "Why would he go there?" Sarah whispered. "To erase something," Cole said darkly, "or to retrieve something." A sick realization crept into her bones. "Or to stage something." Cole didn't argue. He didn't have to. They drove separately to the scene. Sarah in her cruiser, the sheriff in an unmarked vehicle, sirens off to avoid stirring panic. The road stretched out before her like a scar across the land, long and silent, lined with the same mesquite trees that had stood witness in 1999. Every mile felt heavier than the last. Her radio crackled. "Detective Keene, this is dispatch. We're tracking the vehicle you flagged." It slowed near mile marker 48, stopped for 30 seconds, and then disappeared from camera range. No clear exit path. "Copy," Sarah said. Throat tight. 30 seconds. Enough time to drop something. Enough time to hide something. Enough time to leave a warning. When she reached the old site, memories she didn't own painted themselves across her vision. Photographs she had studied for years, reports she had memorized, testimonies from deputies long retired. But the road felt different now. Not haunted. Not tragic. Alive. Dangerously alive. The sheriff's car pulled up behind her. They exchanged a look that needed no words. Sarah clicked on her flashlight and approached the brush. The same spot where Hannah's truck had been found. The same ditch where deputies once searched desperately for clues. The ground looked freshly disturbed. Her light caught something embedded in the dirt. Metallic, small, glinting. A badge. No, not a badge. A shard of a badge, broken off as if snapped by force. She crouched, heart hammering. The broken piece bore the sheriff's department emblem, worn down by time but unmistakable. She brushed soil from the edges and froze. There were scratches on it. Not random. Letters. Carved into the metal. 3 letters. Harvey. Her breath stopped. Hannah Vaughn. She had carved her initials into the badge fragment. She had left a message. She had marked her attacker. 25 years buried. 25 years waiting in the dirt. Until someone came back to retrieve it. But they didn't find it first. Sarah did. She lifted the fragment, her hand trembling. The sheriff stepped beside her. Jesus, he murmured. This changes everything. No, she said quietly. This proves everything. She pocketed the fragment, careful not to smudge it. But as she stood, the beam of her flashlight slid across the brush and caught something else. Footprints. Fresh footprints. 2 sets. One deeper, wide strides, male. The other lighter, staggered, as though someone had been dragged. Her stomach clenched. These are new, she whispered. Cole knelt beside her, tracing the indentation with his light. Dragged. Recently. They followed the tracks into the trees, moving quickly but silently. Branches snapped underfoot. The air thickened. The brush closed in. Then Sarah smelled it. Smoke. Thin, acrid, drifting low to the ground. Her flashlight cut through the trees and illuminated a small fire pit still burning, embers glowing red like watchful eyes. Something charred sat inside, blackened and curled. Paper. Not blank paper. Reports. Pages. Handwritten notes. Old notes. Case notes. Sarah reached into the pit with a stick, hooking a corner of the burnt paper, pulling it out. The heat stung her face. The fragment unfolded just enough for her to see a familiar signature at the bottom. Deputy Marshal Curtis Harlan. He had written the note. He had written the message. He had been closer to the truth than anyone knew. And now someone was burning his records. Someone trying to erase every piece of evidence that tied the nights together. Every detail that could expose who wore the badge for the wrong reasons. Cole cursed under his breath. Harlan didn't burn these. No, Sarah said, voice tightening. Harlan isn't running from us. She stood slowly, scanning the treeline. He's running from them. The realization hit like a blow. Harlan wasn't the predator. He was the loose end. He had seen something. He had carried it for 25 years. He had tried to signal it through unofficial notes, subtle warnings, quiet visits to Hannah's parents. And now they were trying to silence him. Before she could speak, her radio crackled with a distorted voice. Detective Keene, urgent, you need to return to the hospital. Static swallowed the rest. Sarah froze. Say again, she said. More static. A sharp, broken fragment of a sentence. Someone asking for you. Another burst of static. He says he saw the man. Cold dread slid down her spine. Eli was awake again. Or someone else was. Cole nodded. Go. I'll secure the area. She ran back to her cruiser. Heart pounding, badge fragment burning in her pocket like a piece of the truth trying to break free. But before she reached the driver's seat, her phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number.
Blocked sender.
A single sentence. You're digging in the wrong dirt, Sarah. Her lungs seized, and below the text an image loaded. A photo, taken moments earlier, of her, standing in the brush, holding the badge fragment, with a shadowed figure partially visible behind a tree trunk, watching. Her blood ran cold. She hadn't heard them. She hadn't seen them. But they had been right there, close enough to take a picture, close enough to follow her, close enough to silence her if they wanted to. This wasn't a case anymore. This was a hunt. And Sarah Keene had just discovered she wasn't chasing the predator. She was walking straight into its teeth. The drive back to the hospital felt shorter than it should have, as if the road itself bent under the weight of what was chasing her. The cruiser hummed beneath Sarah's trembling hands, headlights slicing through a sheet of darkness that seemed thicker, heavier, watchful. The text message replayed in her mind with mechanical precision. "You're digging in the wrong dirt, Sarah." The shadow behind the tree, the photograph taken inches from where she stood, the unseen presence threading itself through the night like a whisper. She tried to steady her breathing, but her pulse had its own rhythm. Rapid, frantic, alarmed. Someone was tracking her movements with an intimacy that made her skin crawl. Someone knew exactly where she was, what she'd found, what she was about to do next. And someone was already waiting for her next move. The automatic doors of the hospital slid open with a cold whoosh. The sterile light inside felt too bright, too exposed. She tucked the badge fragment into her jacket pocket, pressing it flat against her chest as though trying to merge it with her heartbeat. As she approached the nurse's station, a night shift nurse looked up at her, startled. "You came fast," the nurse said. "Room 216. He's been asking for you." "He's awake?" Sarah asked. "Yes, but something's off." "How off?" The nurse hesitated, and for a moment, that silence was louder than any siren. "He's asking for you by name, full name, middle initial and everything." Sarah's blood chilled. She had never told Eli her middle initial. She stepped down the corridor, each footfall echoing sharper than the last. The hall felt too long, the air too still, the lights too white. When she reached room 216, she paused, listening. No machines beeping. No nurses speaking. No murmurs of a struggling patient. Only a slow, steady breathing on the other side of the door. She entered. Eli lay on the bed, eyes half open, chest rising shallowly. But something was different. His fingers were curled tight around the sheet. His face was tense, jaw clenched as if holding back a scream. When he turned his head toward her, she saw it immediately, the fear. "You came," he whispered. He looked worse than before. Skin gray, lips pale, veins threading blue across his temples. She stepped to his side. "Eli, what happened? Did someone come into your room?" His breath hitched. "Not someone. Him." A spike of dread shot through her. "Who?" Eli swallowed hard, eyes darting to the dark corner of the room as if the shadows themselves were listening. "He told me," his voice cracked. "He told me to give you a message." Sarah leaned in. "What message?" Eli closed his eyes. Tears leaked out from the corners. "He said she shouldn't have come back to the road." Her chest tightened painfully. "Eli, who said that?" His eyes snapped open suddenly. "You already know." She felt the world tilt, her breath catch. She didn't know. She didn't want to know. But something in his eyes, something hollow, resigned, said she did. "He's not hiding anymore," Eli whispered. "Not from you." Before she could speak, the heart monitor let out a soft warning beep. Then another. Then a louder one. Eli's back arched slightly. "Eli," she whispered urgently. "Eli, stay with me." He grabbed her wrist with startling strength. "You need to find Harlan," he gasped. "He's the only one who—" His breath cut off. His grip loosened. The monitor screamed. Nurses rushed in, shouting orders, moving with desperate precision. Sarah staggered back, her hands still tingling from his grip, her throat tight, her vision blurring as if the room itself was losing oxygen. She stepped out into the hallway just as the doctors began compressions. Her legs felt weak, her mind spiraling. Another death. Another witness silenced. Another warning. Then her phone buzzed again. A voicemail. From an unknown number. Her heart hammered as she pressed play. For a moment there was only static. Then a low, gravelly voice. Too calm. Too steady. You're asking the wrong questions, detective. Static. You're following the wrong man. Static. And you're closer to the truth than you think. Then silence. The message ended abruptly. She replayed it, analyzing every tone, every breath. The voice was disguised, digitally modulated, but the cadence, the rhythm, the confidence felt familiar. Familiar in a way that made her stomach knot. She walked quickly toward the elevator, needing air, needing movement, needing distance. But the doors slid open before she touched the button. And someone was already inside. A tall figure, shadowed, wearing hospital scrubs, face partially obscured by a surgical mask, holding a chart, standing completely still. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. The figure didn't move, didn't blink. The elevator doors began to close. Sarah's instincts screamed. She stepped forward, and the figure pressed the door close button deliberately. The doors shut between them. She ran down the stairs, boots slamming against concrete, heart pounding like a war drum. When she reached the ground floor and bolted outside, the figure was nowhere. No scraps, no mask, no chart, just the faint hum of traffic in the distance. And then she saw it, a folded piece of paper tucked under her windshield wiper. Her pulse spiked. She approached the cruiser, hands trembling, scanning the parking lot for movement. She pulled the note free and unfolded it slowly. 2 words, written in black marker, thick strokes, deliberate, threatening. Stop digging. Nothing else.
No signature.
No symbol. Just a command. But the back of the note held more. A smear of dirt. Red clay. The kind found only in one place in Redwater. County Road 12. Her lungs burned as she breathed in. She was being pushed back to the beginning. Forced into a labyrinth someone else had designed. Manipulated into following a trail they controlled. But the badge fragment in her pocket pressed against her leg like a pulse. A heartbeat. A truth trying to surface. She touched it, grounding herself. Someone carved their initials into the badge that night. Someone fought. Someone survived longer than anyone knew. And someone tried to erase that truth today. She returned to her cruiser, slid inside, and locked the doors. Her hands closed around the steering wheel with a fury she felt down to her bones. She wasn't stopping. She wasn't backing down. She wasn't letting fear steer her. She was going to find Harlan. Not because he was guilty, but because he was hunted. And hunters who move in packs never leave loose ends. She started the engine. But as she began to pull out of the lot, her headlights washed across something on the pavement. Tire marks. Fresh ones. Leading out of the parking lot. Leading into the dark. Leading toward the only place that mattered. County Road 12. Trailing a path she was meant to follow. Or meant to fear. Either way, she threw the car into gear. And drove headfirst into the night. The tires screamed against the pavement as Sarah accelerated out of the hospital lot and into the back roads of Redwater. Following the fresh tread marks imprinted like a set of breadcrumbs meant either to guide her or bury her. The night felt swollen with heat, pressing against the windshield like a living thing. Every mile tightened around her throat, a coil winding, drawing her deeper into a landscape that seemed darker than she remembered, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Her radio remained silent. Her phone remained darker. Her instincts, however, were ringing like church bells in a storm. Whoever left those marks wanted her on the road. Wanted her to chase. Wanted her to feel hunted. And she did. As she approached County Road 12, the asphalt stretched into the distance like an open wound. Nothing moved. No headlights. No traffic. No wind stirring the mesquite branches. But the silence wasn't empty. It was waiting. Her high beams washed over the spot where Hannah's truck once stood. The ditch, the fence line, the shadowed tree where the jacket fragment had been discovered. Everything looked frozen in a tableau of dread. She eased the cruiser onto the shoulder. Something was wrong. No, many things were wrong. The earth beside the road had been disturbed again. Soil scraped up in sharp lines, as if someone had knelt there recently. Her beam caught a faint footprint, fresh, deep, pointing toward the woods. She killed the engine, stepped out slowly, hand on her holster, scanning the trees. Then she heard it. A sound so faint she almost mistook it for wind. A soft, rhythmic metallic clink, tap, 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 came from deeper in the brush. She moved toward it, every sense alert, every instinct telling her she was entering someone else's territory. The metallic tapping grew louder as she approached the tree-line, until she reached a small clearing where moonlight filtered through the branches. And there, hanging from a low oak limb, was a sheriff's badge, spinning slightly, turning like a pendulum, tapping the tree bark with each slow rotation. Clink, clink, clink. Her breath caught. The badge was attached to a length of thin fishing line tied neatly around the branch. A trap by design, not accident. Someone wanted her to find it. Someone wanted her to remember the night a badge was used not as protection but as bait. Sarah stepped closer. The number stamped on the badge was etched into her childhood memory. She didn't need to lean in. It was Harlan's badge. But Harlan never hung his badge on anything. And he never tied knots this clean. Her heart dropped into her stomach. This wasn't left by Harlan. This was left for her. A message. A warning. A lure. She scanned the ground and saw something else. Tracks leading away from the badge site, deeper into the woods. Not footprints. Drag marks. 2 grooves carved through leaves and dirt like someone had been pulled backward. Harlan, she whispered. Oh God. She followed the marks, moving quickly now, branches whipping against her arms, leaves crunching underfoot. Her beam cut through the blackness and revealed broken branches, crushed undergrowth, torn fabric snagged on thorns. Something large had been dragged through here recently. Very recently. Her radio crackled suddenly. Keen, do you copy? It was the sheriff. She snatched the radio up. Cole? I'm on County Road 12. I found Harlan's badge. And drag marks. They're heading into the woods. Static buzzed. Then, don't move. What? Sheriff, Harlan might be hurt. Detective, listen to me. We found something. Her lungs tightened. What? Traffic cameras picked up the truck again. It wasn't just circling the road. It stopped behind the old grain mill. That's miles from here. I know, but that's not the issue. His voice lowered. We ran the plate. The truck isn't registered to Harlan. What do you mean? It belongs to someone else. The world seemed to tilt. Who? She demanded. A beat of silence. Then, the sheriff's department. She froze. Which department? She whispered, though she already feared the answer. Cole exhaled. Ours. Her pulse slammed painfully in her ears. Someone checked out an unmarked unit early this morning, he continued. Signed under a name that doesn't exist in our records. Sarah felt the night swallow her. This was organized, coordinated, internal. A hunter using department resources to stalk her. Cole, she said quietly. Someone left Harlan's badge here. They wanted me to chase it. I know, he replied. We think someone is using Harlan, either to bait you or eliminate him. She crouched, running her fingers over the drag trail. The tracks lead deeper, she said. I think Harlan was taken. Keen, Cole started. But the radio broke into harsh static, then cut out completely. Sheriff? Sheriff? Do you copy? Nothing. She tried again. Silence. She pulled her phone out. No signal. The woods had swallowed communication whole. She stood, scanning the darkness. The only path was the one carved by force, 2 grooves pulling her deeper. She drew her weapon. Every instinct screamed to turn back. But she didn't. She followed. The drag marks continued another 40 yards before they stopped abruptly at the base of a fallen log. The ground was flattened, disturbed as though a struggle had taken place, and something glinted in the beam of her flashlight. A shell casing, .38 caliber. Sheriff's issue. But there was no blood, no body, no sign of Harlan. She picked up the casing with a glove and turned it under the light. The firing pin indentation looked off, shallow, imperfect. A misfire. Someone had tried to shoot him, and someone had failed. A twig snapped behind her. She spun, gun raised. Nothing. Darkness. But the air had changed. Someone was there. Watching. Waiting. Her pulse surged. Show yourself. Silence. She backed up slowly, flashlight sweeping the area. Then her beam caught something half buried under leaves. A folded piece of paper weighted down by a stone. She lifted the rock and unfolded the paper with trembling hands. One sentence, written in block, confident handwriting. He tried to warn you. Her heart dropped. Underneath the sentence was a smear of blood. Fresh. Warm. Another twig snapped, closer this time. She raised her gun toward the sound. Step out, she shouted. The brush parted. A figure lunged forward, collapsing at her feet. Sarah stumbled back, flashlight shaking in her hand as the figure rolled onto their side. Then she saw his face. Curtis Harlan. Bleeding, pale, breathing in ragged, wet gasps. Alive. Barely. Harlan. Oh God, Harlan. He grabbed her jacket with surprising strength, pulling her close, eyes wild with panic and pain. Sarah, he rasped, you have to listen. I'm getting you out. Just hold on. No, he coughed, blood flecking his lips. No time, no time. She leaned down, heart hammering so hard she felt it in her teeth. Who did this? She whispered. His eyes locked onto hers, wide, terrified, and knowing. He's not the man you think he is. Who? Harlan swallowed, struggled to breathe, tried again. The one who took Hannah, the one who took me. He convulsed, sucking in broken breaths. He's wearing the badge now. Sarah froze. Cold dread tore through her like a blade. No, no, no. But the fear in Harlan's eyes said yes. And then he whispered the words that ripped the world out from under her. You're working for him. For a moment, everything inside her went silent. Not the woods, not the trembling leaves, not the rasping breaths of the dying man at her feet. Everything inside her. Thoughts froze, breath stalled, pulse drowned under a sudden, crushing stillness. The words struck with surgical precision. You're working for him. She stared at Harlan, unable to find her voice. Her chest tightened, her world narrowing to a pinpoint. What did you say? She finally whispered. Harlan's fingers clutched her jacket collar, pulling her closer with the last scraps of his strength. He's in your department, he rasped. Hi, trusted, always there, watching, guiding. Her throat tightened. Who? Harlan coughed violently, blood misting across his chin. His body trembled. His eyes, glassy and fading, locked onto hers with a desperation that carved itself into her bones. He used you to reopen the case, he gasped. Used all of us. You were never hunting him, he was leading you. Those words burrowed like ice under her skin. She tried to keep her voice steady. Tell me his name. He tried. His mouth opened. A sound choked out, but a sharp crack split the night. A gunshot. Close. Very close. Harlan jerked. The light drained from his eyes as he sagged against her, grip loosening. The shot hadn't hit her. It hadn't even been aimed at her. It was a warning shot. She dove behind a tree trunk, gun drawn, heart slamming into her ribs. Her flashlight beam shook violently as she searched the darkness. Silence swallowed the woods. The shot hadn't come from far. The echo was too tight, too direct. Someone was circling. Someone with aim precise enough to kill her but choosing not to. A soft whir broke the stillness. She blinked. A drone. Small. Silent. Hovering above the treetops. Its single red recording light blinked steadily. watching her, tracking her. The moment her beam hit it, the drone zipped backward into the canopy, disappearing into the branches with predatory ease. Her phone buzzed. She didn't need to look to know who it was. A blocked number. A single text. Leave him. Follow the trail. Her breath caught. She looked back at Harlan's body, limp among the leaves. Warm only moments ago. Gone now. Her stomach twisted. She wanted to scream into the night. Wanted to fire blindly into the woods. Wanted to drag the truth out with her own hands. Instead, she forced herself to stand. Whoever sent the message wasn't panicked. They weren't improvising. They were orchestrating. They knew her movements. They anticipated her reactions. They wanted her walking deeper into the trap because they had already built the walls around her. But she didn't have a choice. Not anymore. She holstered her weapon long enough to close Harlan's eyes. It was all she could give him. Then she followed the drag trail deeper into the woods, stepping over broken branches, through thick undergrowth, past tree trunks scarred by hurried flight. Harlan had run. Someone had hunted. And Sarah was now in the crosshairs of the same pursuit. The trees eventually thinned, giving way to a clearing where moonlight illuminated a structure that didn't belong. A shed. Small, rotting, half-swallowed by vines. But not abandoned. Fresh tire marks cut into the soil. And near the shed door boot prints. Heavy ones. Someone had been here. Recently. She approached slowly, gun raised, breath tight. Every instinct screaming that she was one step away from disappearing like Hannah. As she reached the shed, she saw the door wasn't fully closed. A sliver of darkness leaked out like breath. She nudged it open with her foot, and the smell hit her. Dust, oil, old wood, and another smell. Faint, sharp, blood. Her flashlight beam swept the interior. A chair overturned. A rope on the floor. A boot print stamped into dried mud. A cell phone smashed under a boot heel. A sheriff's jacket, half burned, lying in the corner. Then her beam caught something else. Carved into the shed wall. Letters. Scratched deep, frantic, uneven. Not Harlan. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Harlan hadn't carved this. His handwriting had always been neat, measured, controlled. This writing was desperate, carved in terror. Someone else had been kept here. Someone who tried to leave a message. Someone who wanted her to know she was chasing the wrong man. Her mind raced. Who? Why? How long ago? A flicker reflected in the corner of the shed. She turned. Her flashlight landed on a metal box, half hidden under a pile of old canvas tarps. The box was military-grade, scratched, dented, but intact. She dragged it into the light. A lock, broken, forced open recently. Inside, a stack of VHS tapes, a handheld camcorder, a sheriff's badge identical to theirs, except the number had been filed off, and a photograph. Her lungs froze. A photograph of Hannah Vaughn, taken the night she disappeared. Not the image used in missing posters. Not her college portrait. This was candid, close, personal. Hannah in front of her truck, turning her head toward someone behind the camera, smiling nervously, uncertain, trusting. The timestamp in the corner burned like a fuse. June 12, 1999, 12:04 a.m., minutes before she vanished. Sarah's pulse roared in her ears. Someone filmed her. Someone approached her. Someone she recognized just enough to hesitate instead of flee. She reached for the tapes, hands shaking. One tape was labeled sloppily in faded ink. CR12, June 12th. Her fingers brushed the camcorder. It was old, dusty, battery-corroded. But then a soft rustle echoed outside the shed. She froze. The footsteps were light, purposeful, close. She turned off her flashlight, plunging the shed into darkness. Her breath steadied. Her ears sharpened. A shadow passed across the sliver of moonlight at the door. Someone was standing just outside, listening, breathing, waiting. Her grip tightened on her gun. The door creaked, and the shed exploded with sudden motion as the shadow lunged in. Sarah fired once. The figure darted sideways impossibly fast, knocking her flashlight into the wall. Darkness swallowed everything. A hand slammed into her shoulder. She twisted away, firing again, the muzzle flash briefly illuminating a figure in a dark jacket, face obscured, arm raised. Another strike. Her gun flew from her grip. She hit the ground hard. The figure stood over her in the blackness. She waited for a killing blow, but none came. Instead, a voice. Low, calm, distorted, but not disguised enough. "You're close now, detective," she gasped. The voice was familiar, too familiar. "Who are you?" she whispered. A breath, a soft almost laugh. "You already know." A boot kicked the tapes away into the dark. Then the shadow slipped out of the shed as silently as it had entered. By the time she scrambled to the entrance, weapon recovered, flashlight shaking, there was nothing. No footsteps, no movement, no shadow, just the faint hum of a drone lifting into the night sky, watching her, recording her, leaving her alive, on purpose. She stood in the doorway of the shed, breath ragged, badge fragment burning in her pocket, photograph of Hannah in her hand. They weren't trying to kill her. Not yet. They were shaping her, directing her, steering her toward a truth they wanted her to see, or a lie they wanted her to believe. And the worst part wasn't the attack or the voice or the shed full of evidence. The worst part was the realization curling slowly through her mind. The voice that spoke to her in the dark was one she had grown up listening to, one she trusted, one she once admired. And now it was hunting her. Sarah stumbled out of the shed with the photograph crushed in her fist and the taste of metal in her mouth. The night pressed against her from all sides, thick, predatory, aware. Somewhere above the treetops, the drone drifted farther into the dark like a mechanical vulture circling its prey. The voice still echoed in her skull. "You already know." But she didn't want to know. She wasn't ready to know. Not yet. Her mind clawed desperately for a different answer. A different suspect. A different monster hiding behind the badge. But the truth was no longer hiding. It was tracking her. She sank against a tree, forcing her breath to steady, grounding herself. The forest felt alive with whispers, branches ticking like fingernails against bark, leaves brushing like someone exhaling near her ear. Every instinct pleaded with her to leave, to run, to get out of the predator's chosen hunting ground. But she didn't run. She pulled out the photograph again. Hannah Vaughn staring toward the camera with a strange mix of uncertainty and trust. A smile that wasn't fully formed. Shoulders tense. Arms wrapped loosely as if bracing herself against the night. Someone she knew took that picture. Someone she didn't fear, not enough. Someone close. Sarah tucked the photo safely inside her pocket and pressed forward into the woods, trying to retrace her steps, find her cruiser, contact the sheriff. Anything that resembled escape. But when she reached the tree line, her cruiser was gone. A strangled breath ripped from her chest. Not vandalized. Not broken into. Not abandoned. Gone. Vanished from the shoulder of the road. The asphalt was bare. Only tire marks remained. Fresh, deep, mocking. Someone had taken her vehicle. Someone had removed her lifeline. Someone had erased her presence from the map. She backed up instinctively, scanning the road, the ditch, the brush, her eyes adjusting to the dim glow of the moon. Then she saw it. A flare of red light blinking gently from the center of the asphalt. She approached slowly, gun in hand, every cell in her body screaming danger. The red light wasn't a flare. It was a phone. Her phone, placed neatly in the center of the road. Screen cracked, case torn. A single notification blinking. A new message.
Blocked sender.
3 words. Keep walking, Sarah. She felt the night shift around her again. The road stretched long and empty, disappearing into shadows that looked more like jaws than distance. A cold sweat slid down her spine. She stepped back. Another message appeared instantly. The road. Now. Her pulse spiked. They were watching. They were close. They controlled the terrain. She stared up at the ridgeline beyond the road. Somewhere in the dark, she felt optics locked onto her. Binoculars, a rifle scope, the infrared eye of a drone. She couldn't see them, but she knew they were there. Slowly, carefully, she stepped onto the asphalt. Another message arrived. Good. Her chest tightened painfully. She forced herself forward. 10 paces. 20. 30. The road curved slightly, sloping downward. The moonlight pooled like silver over the asphalt. At the crest of the hill, something emerged from the brush. A shape, a figure, half collapsed. Sarah froze. It was a man. Knees buckled, one arm dragging against the ground, the other clutching his side. He stumbled forward and fell to one knee. Her breath caught. Sheriff Cole? The man lifted his head. Briefly, moonlight touched his face. It was Sheriff Cole. Pale, sweating, disoriented. She sprinted toward him. Sheriff, what happened? Are you? His arm shot out, grabbing her wrist with startling force. Sarah, run. His voice was shredded, barely human. She looked wildly around, scanning the darkness. What happened? Where's your radio? Why? Cole's hand trembled violently. Not safe trap. He coughed hard. A wet, ugly sound. Blood sprayed onto the road. Sarah's heart thundered. We have to get you to a hospital. Now. Cole shook his head weakly. No time, listen to me. She knelt beside him, supporting his weight. What did they do to you? Cole's eyes flicked upward, toward the hill behind her, and widened. Sarah spun around, gun raised. But there was no figure, no movement, no face, just the stillness of the road and the suffocating dark. Cole tugged her sleeve. He's watching. Who? She demanded. Who is doing this? Tell me. Cole sucked in a ragged breath. He's not the man you think he is, Sarah. Her stomach dropped. She had heard those exact words before. From Harlan. Cole continued, voice trembling. Not Hollis. Not Harlan. Not Mercer. Not anyone from 99 you've been chasing. Her blood turned to ice. Cole squeezed her arm harder, panic flaring in his eyes. He's feeding you clues, leading you down the line. He wants you to think you're close, but he's controlling every inch. Sheriff, tell me who he is. Cole exhaled shakily, as if speaking the name would rip something loose from the world. He's been shaping your steps since the day you joined the department. Always near, always guiding, always. He winced, breath stalling. Sarah, it's... A gunshot shattered the night. Cole jerked violently. A bloom of red spread across his shirt. No! She grabbed him as he collapsed, hands slipping against warm blood, rage exploding inside her like a grenade. She looked around wildly, eyes burning, searching for the shooter. Another flash from the ridgeline. Another round slammed into the asphalt inches from her knee, exploding chips of pavement into the air. The shot wasn't meant to kill her. Not yet. She dragged Cole toward the ditch, shielding him as best she could. His breathing rattled, shallow, broken. Hold on, she whispered desperately. Hold on. His hand lifted weakly, gripping her collar. You have to run. I'm not leaving you. Sarah, listen. His voice was fading, dissolving into the wind. The man you're looking for. She pressed her ear close to his lips. Cole whispered one final line. 6 words that detonated the last pieces of her world. He trained you to find him. The sheriff's grip loosened. His head fell back. His chest went still. A roar of agony tore from her throat. She stumbled to her feet, swaying, breath shaking violently. She wasn't chasing a suspect. She was being shaped by a puppeteer. Someone inside the department. Someone who trained her, guided her, molded her instincts, crafted her approach, defined her methods. Someone who had been preparing her for this. Her phone buzzed again on the asphalt. She looked down. A new message. Just one name. Come find me, Sarah. Below it, a location pin. The sheriff's office. The place where her career began. The place where every case file lived. The place where the monster wore a badge. The sheriff's office rose out of the night like a blackened monument. Familiar, steady, unmovable, yet now drenched in a silence that felt colder than the woods, colder than County Road 12, colder than the shed where truth had begun to uncoil. The building that once felt like sanctuary now loomed like a predator's den. Every window stared back at her. Every shadow along its brick walls seemed to breathe. Sarah's cruiser was gone. Her radio dead. Her phone cracked. Her badge felt heavier than steel. But she walked toward the entrance anyway, boots crunching across gravel, breath burning hot against the cool night air. A place she thought she knew. A place she once trusted. A place where the monster waited. He trained you to find him. Sheriff Cole's dying words pulsed inside her skull with every step. She replayed them like evidence. Measured, dissected, unwilling to accept their weight but unable to escape it. He trained her. He shaped her. He built her into the perfect investigator. Because he knew one day she'd be forced to hunt him. Not Hollis. Not Harlan. Not a ghost from '99. Not a deputy long gone. Someone still inside. Someone high. Someone respected. The front doors were unlocked. That was the first warning. The lobby lights were on. That was the second. Her name echoed faintly through the hall. Not spoken. Not whispered. Played. Through the intercom. As if the building itself knew she had arrived. Detective Keene, welcome home. The voice was smooth, low, recorded but unmistakably intentional. A trap disguised as familiarity. It vibrated through the empty corridors, humming against old case files and glass display cases, and the badge-shaped emblems mounted along the walls. Her hand slid to her holster. "Show yourself," she called out. Words steady despite the tremor she could feel beneath her ribs. Silence pressed back. Then, a click. A soft electronic hum. A screen flickering to life. The monitor behind the reception desk brightened, casting eerie blue light onto the linoleum floor. A video began playing. Footage from a body cam. Timestamped. June 12, 1999. Sarah's pulse tripped. The angle was low, shaky, following two figures through the woods. Trees whipping by. Branches snapping. The distinctive beam of a deputy's flashlight slicing the dark. Two jackets. Two men. Dragging something. Or someone. A muffled voice came from behind the camera. "Get her up." Another voice. Deeper. "Hurry. We don't have long." The recording glitched, audio breaking into static. Then back again. Hannah's face flashed across the screen. Terrified. Bruised. Alive. Sarah staggered back a step. The screen cut to black. Then a new line of text appeared in white letters. "You're almost there." She clenched her teeth, fury igniting in her chest. She moved down the hallway as the lights flickered on ahead of her, one after another like breadcrumbs leading her toward something inevitable. Every step felt rehearsed, designed, anticipated. As she passed the bullpen, more monitors lit up, grainy surveillance footage of her own career flashing in rapid cuts. Training exercises, interrogation rooms, her first day swearing the oath, her first commendation, her first solved case, her first conversation with, no. She tore her gaze away, refusing to look at the face she feared would appear. At the end of the hall, the door to the briefing room stood open. Inside, a single lamp illuminated a long table cluttered with documents, photos, maps. The air smelled faintly of old paper and something else. Cologne. A cologne she recognized. Her stomach knotted. Footsteps echoed behind her. Slow. Measured. Confident. Sarah spun, weapon raised. The door eased open, and he stepped inside. Not a ghost. Not a shadow. Not a forgotten deputy from 1999. A man she had seen every day. A man whose approval she once sought. A man who had guided her through every major case. A man whose signature appeared on half the files in the department. Deputy Chief Marcus Hale. silver hair, pressed uniform, calm, warm expression, the kind of man who smiled at town picnics and gave speeches at academy graduations. Except now his smile was wrong, cold, knowing. "Sarah," he said softly, as if greeting an old friend. "You made it." Her grip tightened on her weapon. "Don't move." Hale stepped forward anyway, hands visible, empty, confident. "Do you know how proud I am of you?" he asked. "You followed everything perfectly. Stay back. You chased every clue I left. You uncovered every stone I wanted turned. You solved the pieces most people would have missed entirely." I said back. He stopped, tilted his head, studied her with gentle amusement, like a teacher watching a student finally understand a lesson. "You still don't see it," he murmured. "Not fully." "See what?" "That this," he gestured around them, to the monitors, the files, the photo of Hannah she still carried, "was never about you catching me." Her jaw clenched. "Then what was it?" He smiled. "It was about you completing my work." Sarah felt ice spread through her veins. "You killed them," she whispered. "Hannah, Hollis, you hunted Harlan. You shot Cole. I protected something bigger than any of them understood," Hale replied calmly. "A truth buried for years. A truth they couldn't handle." "What truth?" He stepped closer. She kept the gun aimed at his chest, but he continued undeterred. "Hannah wasn't random. She wasn't a victim. She was a witness. She saw something she shouldn't have seen. Something that would have burned this town to the ground." Sarah shook her head. "You're lying." "I would never lie to you," he said softly. "You're the only one smart enough to understand the burden." He took another step. She pulled the trigger halfway. Hale stopped, hands lifted in mock surrender. "Careful," he said gently. "You shoot me now, and you lose the only person who can tell you what really happened in '99. Her breath hitched. He knew. He knew her weakness, her obsession with the truth, her need to solve what others failed to solve, her refusal to let silence stand. Hale lowered his hands slowly. "Let me show you," he whispered. "The truth you've been chasing blindly since the moment you put on that badge." Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. "Why me?" she demanded. His smile widened. "Because you're my legacy." Sarah's breath left her in a single gutting exhale. "My what?" "You think your instincts are yours?" he asked. "Your methods? Your approach? Everything you know, you learned from me." He pointed at her chest. "You are the perfect version of what I built." Her vision blurred with fury. "You used me." "No," he said softly. "I chose you." A tremor ran down her spine. Hale turned toward the table of documents. "Come, Sarah. It's time to see what this case was really about." She didn't move. He didn't turn back. But his voice sharpened like a blade. "You want the truth? This is your only chance." Her fingers tightened around the gun until her knuckles whitened. He was right about one thing. She had chased this case so far she could no longer stop. Not until she saw the truth. Even if it destroyed her. Slowly, carefully, she stepped forward. Toward the table. Toward the darkness. Toward the man who had shaped her life more than she ever realized. Deputy Chief Marcus Hale. Her mentor. Her trainer. Her monster. And the truth waiting on that table was worse than anything she had imagined. The table looked like the operating slab of some long-dormant monster. Papers scattered like bones, VHS tapes stacked like vertebrae, photographs arranged with unsettling precision. But what made Sarah's pulse stagger wasn't the evidence. It was the familiarity. Documents she recognized. Forms she herself had filed. Notes she had taken in cases years apart. Now rearranged into some dark mosaic she had never seen until this moment. Hale stood at the head of the table, fingertips resting lightly on its surface, posture relaxed, almost ceremonial, as if unveiling a masterpiece only he understood. "Everything you've followed," he murmured. "Every breadcrumb, every shadow, every lie, all of it leads here." Sarah kept her gun raised, though her arm ached from the tension. "Start talking." He nodded once, slow and almost compassionate. I will. He pulled a folder from the center of the table. The thick one. Old. Its edges yellowed. Its label faded. He slid it toward her like a peace offering. She didn't touch it. Hale exhaled lightly. June 12, 1999 wasn't the beginning. It was the end of something that started long before you ever put on that uniform. Her voice was low and sharp. Stop circling. Say what happened. Hale opened the folder. Inside were photographs, aerial shots, property records, police reports, all stamped confidential. And then, a second photograph. Hannah Vaughn. Not on the night she disappeared. Younger. A child. Standing in front of a house Sarah recognized immediately, the Vaughn property on Colton Creek. Except behind Hannah, partially cut off by the frame, stood a man with his face turned away. A man wearing a sheriff's jacket. Sarah's skin pricked with cold. She witnessed something, Hale said softly. Something none of us could allow to surface. Her heart hammered. What did she see? Hale's eyes glinted with something between pride and sorrow. She saw the truth about the badge. He lifted another photograph, this one grainy, night vision green. A group of men in uniform gathered near a truck. But these weren't duty shifts. These were clandestine, off-record, unauthorized, their faces blurred by motion. Except one. Hale himself, younger, clean-shaven, holding a flashlight. Sarah took a step back. You were running an operation. A necessary one. You were abusing authority. We were protecting the county, he corrected, voice sharpening for the first time. Protecting the institution. Her voice cracked with disgust. Protecting what? Corruption? Hale shook his head slowly. Order. He lifted another file, medical records this time. Hospital bills. Treatment notes. Police escorts logged under false names. Hannah stumbled into something dangerous long before she disappeared, Hale said. She saw men impersonating deputies. Saw drop-offs. Exchanges. Saw money change hands between people who never wanted to be seen together. She saw the underbelly of this county. The part that kept the lights on, the roads paved, the crime rates low. And you silenced her. I didn't want to, he said quietly. I wanted to protect her. I tried. But once the others realized she'd seen too much, Sarah's jaw clenched. The others. Hale nodded. Men who wore badges but were never deputies. Men brought in to do work that couldn't be traced. Men like Hollis. Men who believed in maintaining control. And Harlan? Sarah asked, voice brittle. He tried to expose you. He tried to warn you, Hale corrected gently. But he didn't understand the scale. The system was too big for him. He could barely carry the weight of what he knew. Sarah's throat tightened painfully. Then why kill him? Why kill Cole? Why kill Eli? I didn't kill them, Hale said simply. I tried to protect them. But the others, the ones still loyal to the old system, they panicked when the case reopened. Her pulse stopped, then resumed in a painful rush. There are others? Hale stepped closer. She stepped back. You've met some of them already, he said. You've heard their footsteps, felt their presence. They aren't ghosts. They aren't myths. They're the hands of the old machine still grasping at relevance. Her fingers tightened on her gun. Who are they? A soft smile touched his lips. Sad. Inevitable. That's the wrong question. Then what's the right one? She demanded. Hale turned a monitor toward her. It flickered, then displayed a photo Hannah's, again. But younger still, maybe 13, standing beside someone shockingly familiar. Sarah's breath broke. Her own father. Her knees nearly buckled. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Hale watched her unravel with a kind of tenderness that made her want to scream. He was part of it too, Hale said quietly. Your father was the first man to train me, the first to teach me how to protect this county, the first to understand that sometimes justice isn't written in books. It's written in survival. Sarah shook her head violently. My father wasn't a criminal. He was a good man, Hale said. A necessary man. A man who believed in you more than anyone. She swallowed hard. What happened to him? Hale's expression softened. He tried to walk away. A tremor ran through her, and the system punished him for it. No, she said, voice cracking. He died of a heart attack. Did he? Her breath caught. Sarah, Hale said gently, your father didn't die naturally. He died because he carried the same burden you're carrying now. He knew the truth. He tried to expose it. And the moment he stepped off the path they carved for him, Hale's silence completed the sentence. Her world reeled. Tears blurred the room around her. You're lying. I wish I were. She raised her gun, hands shaking violently. Stop talking. Hale didn't flinch. You came here for the truth. If you didn't want it, you wouldn't have followed the trail. You manipulated the trail. I revealed it. Why me? She cried. Why drag me into this? Hale stepped closer, voice lowering into something almost fatherly. Because you're the only one strong enough to finish what he started. A sick wave rolled through her. He continued, calm as ever. This county is built on secrets, on balance, on control. It will always need someone to maintain that control. Your father understood that. Now you do too. I will never be part of this. You already are. He gestured at the table, at the photos she had uncovered, the fragments she had pieced together, the path she had traced through bodies and warnings and lies. You stepped into the dark, Hale whispered, and the dark stepped into you. A long, unbearable silence stretched between them. Then Hale said the words that broke whatever pieces of her were left. You are your father's daughter. The gun in her hand trembled. Put it down, Sarah. Let me guide you. The same way I guided him. The same way I guided you all these years. No, she whispered. Think clearly. No. Her voice cracked into a scream. I said no. She fired. The flash lit the room with brutal finality. Hale staggered backward, shock widening his eyes before he collapsed across the table, sending files scattering like wounded birds. The building went silent. Sarah didn't breathe for several seconds. Her ears rang, her vision blurred. But there was no time. Footsteps thundered down the corridor. Not one set, multiple, heavy, fast, coordinated. The others, the remnants of the old machine. The men Hale warned her about. The hunters. Her muscles snapped into instinct. She grabbed the closest files, the ones with Hannah's name, the tapes, the photo, and bolted out the emergency exit into the night just as the briefing room door burst open behind her. Shouts, boots, radios crackling. She didn't look back. She ran. Into the dark. Into the unknown. Into freedom or death, whichever found her first. But as she sprinted across the gravel lot, lungs burning, heart breaking, she understood one thing with absolute clarity. This wasn't the end of the case. This was the beginning of the war her father died trying to start. And now it was hers.